Good morning. I wanted to take a minute to introduce our next presenter. I've been to a lot of these conferences. I've been sitting in your seats, taking in tons of information, networking with colleagues, getting great ideas, and I find that on that last day, I am up to here with ideas, and I am already thinking about how am I going to go home and implement them. So when I started to work with Luke on the agenda, and we started to think about how can we really make today as powerful as the last 2 days, we had Microsoft, which helped to make today awesome, and we wanted to give you a wrap-up keynote that really helped bring what you've learned over the last few days into context. So I reached out to our Chief People Officer, Nancy Gill, who you'll meet a little later on stage with us during the panel, and I said, give me a speaker that's really going to take these attendees and give them the power to go home and inspire everyone around how do we make work better, how do I take what I learned and really sell it up the chain to executives and to the entire organization where we're all trying to drive more adoption and more engagement. So she introduced me to Bill Jensen, and I got a chance to read his book, which was very inspiring, and a couple of you may have already read it as well. And I gave him this challenge to take us through the next hour and a half and engage with us and help us be inspired to go home and put these activities into action. So thank you, Bill, for all the prep work. He's been here for 2 days networking with many of you and attending the sessions to really bring us to this moment where we can go home inspired and execute against everything we've learned. So thanks so much, Bill, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Before I officially begin, so Sitrion doesn't have to puff its chest too far, has this not been an awesome conference? Can we have a round of applause for Sitrion? This has been, you guys, Steph, everybody, the whole staff, this has been absolutely amazing. I want to thank you for everything you have done for everybody here. So here's a great question for you. What is the secret to working smarter, not harder? An even better question, a more urgent question is, Bill, this has been a great conference, but if you give me one more thing to think about, my head is going to explode. You, Bill, are the only one between me and Disney World, and I want to get the hell out of here. Let's try and pay homage to that. I'm going to try not to give you more things to think about, but as everybody has said, is to help you leverage everything that you've learned here in the last few days and take it home and be smarter with everything you've learned here. Now, I have learned from some masters out there. One of my favorite is Gavin Kerr. He's an amazing man who exemplifies for me what working smarter, not harder is about. And right now, he's CEO for the English Foundation out of Philadelphia. And what they do since the 1870s, they have been helping people with permanent disabilities. And his business philosophy is very much like make work better. His business philosophy is about creating an environment where everybody can be his best, everywhere, at Inglis and all his previous jobs. That's what he tries to do. Prior to that, he was COO for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And they are one of the most renowned children's hospitals in the world. And during his tenure there, he was in charge of a massive IT project throughout their entire healthcare network, changing the way IT was run. So if you went out for beers with him, he would be very empathetic to exactly the kind of challenges you're going through. But the experience, the moment that really taught me through him about what working smarter, not harder was about, was when he was a VP of HR at Pepsi. He was in charge of all the people-related issues. This is in the early 90s. All the people-related issues for a massive global re-engineering project around the world. And And at the time, he was living north of New York City, and they needed him in Boston. So every Sunday, he'd kiss his family goodbye, he'd get in the car, he'd drive all the way to Boston, and he'd spend the week in Boston. Every Friday night, he'd get in the car and he'd drive all the way back to New York. Well, there was one particular Friday. He got in the car, and something was bugging him. It's like, I know there was something important that I needed to remember. What was it? And he's driving, and he's thinking the whole way home, and he can't remember what it is. That ever happened to you guys? I mean, as I get older, it's happening to me more and more. But he drives halfway home between Boston and the New York area, and then he goes, now I remember what it was. What happened was he heard a report during the day of highly offensive graffiti in the ladies' room. And he realized he didn't hear a report back on whether or not that was scrubbed off. Now, mind you, he's in charge of a global re-engineering project. He's not even in charge of the Boston facilities. But this really bothered him so much, he had to make sure that this was addressed. But this being the early 90s, the dawn of the cell phone era, it was really hard to connect with people. There was nobody he could connect with to see if it had been addressed. So he turned around, he drove all the way back to Boston just to be sure that that graffiti was scrubbed off. And within that story, within that moment, is the secret to working smarter, not harder. But before I unpack it for you, let's talk about this great, awesome event. Before I came here, I did a content analysis of all the presentations. And this is a map of what your past few days. You spent about 25% of your time in the territory of tech talk. Those were all the product breakouts. By the way, guys, there were too many. I was in the back of the room of many of those. There's too many male heads in those. We got to get more women in the tech talk things. About 25% of your time was in the territory of tech talk. About another 25% of your time at this conference, at this event, was studying you spent it in the United States of changing the way we work. The fact that what you're doing and what all these technologies are doing is re-engineering and changing work. But Sitrion made sure that you spent about half of your time, about 50% of your time, in the People's Republic of People stuff. All the adoption issues, all the engagement, all the buy-in. So much of the conversation and the keynotes and the breakouts were around people issues. And through these three territories, Sitrion has built an amazing event for you to work smarter when you go back. They did exactly what they should have done, which is they designed an event around your needs. But you're only a small portion of your company. What about everybody back there who isn't here? What are their needs? This is what our map looks like through their filter. First of all, the tech talk, you see how small that is? Everybody just wants to know, how easy is it for me to learn? Get the hell out of my way. I just want to be able to use it. Tech talk is they want you to address that and just make the interface real easy. But the majority of everybody who isn't here, they spend their time thinking about, any time you talk to them, what you are doing from their perspective, not necessarily ours, from their perspective is you're changing the way I work. That's the filter. When you walk in and talk to somebody, that's what's going on up here. Is they are thinking about, here comes that guy or gal who's going to change the way I work. Sometimes better, sometimes not. And the reason we talk about the people stuff is the only way you're going to get permission from them for buy-in and engagement is if you address them through the people things. And there are two key issues. Trust. Can I trust you to be thinking about my perspective? And then value. Yes, you guys all believe everything we do is super valuable. But to them, is it valuable? Is it truly? And therein, when we combine both Gavin's story about turning around and driving and adding several hours to his Friday night to worry about whether or not something was taken care of in a ladies' room, and their map, when we combine those two things, that's when we get the secret to working smarter, not harder. And I didn't invent it. You didn't invent it. Today's technology era didn't invent it. It's thousands of years old. It's the golden rule. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Now, when I've been here, I've heard all of you talk about we have to understand our users, we have to survey them, we have to get their feedback. All of that is great. Awesome. Keep doing that. Kudos to you. Kudos to everybody who's doing that. But we still need to go one step further. Walking a mile in their shoes meant to Gavin, he could not go home, even though it wasn't his responsibility. He was thinking about what it would be like for any woman in that facility to have to walk into that ladies' room and see that offensive graffiti. And he couldn't go home and go to sleep until he took care of that. Walking a mile in their shoes is pure, unadulterated empathy for their perspective. And it's amazing what happens when you really do this. I have to admit, when I joined Gavin's team as a consultant in the 90s, I was grumbling about something they made me do. It was one of the smartest things Pepsi ever did for me and for our re-engineering efforts. I was not allowed to consult on Gavin's team until I stocked soda in grocery stores. They made me deliver Pepsi in order to understand, grocery stores, 1% margin or less. More and more, they're using everybody else to stock their shelves. Pepsi was this guy who delivered it, he was representing Pepsi. And he had to make sure every label was turned a certain way, every bottle was stocked a certain way. And I knew that in theory. I saw the reports, I saw videos on it. But until I had to go out and do it, and I had a certain time frame in which to do it, I had a certain weight that I could carry, and I couldn't carry more for safety reasons. I had to stock it a certain way, and I had to get in and I had to be sociable. I had to chat up with the grocery store guys, and I had to do all of that and get the hell out of the store to go on to the next one. Until I literally did that job, I had no idea what it was like. And there's a superpower in really being in their shoes. Since I learned that, I've since replicated it in many of my consulting firm assignments. I recently was helping one of the big box retailers, a major chain you would all know, and they were having some troubles in their store, and I couldn't get, from the research, I couldn't get them to understand what was going on in their stores. So they agreed to all of them would spend, the entire senior team would spend a half a day in the store. And one in particular, the CFO, the guy that's in charge of all the money, he was a cashier. And he walked away from that one moment, half a day, at the cash register, going, I never realized how hard it was to make money. Now, all he saw was the reports and the Excel spreadsheets. But when he had to actually be at the cash register, it gave him an amazing power to understand what it was like in that cashier's shoes. So what that relates to all of us in this room, we all see the reports, we all do the surveys, we all get the feedback, we all get the kudos, everything's wonderful. How about spending a half a day standing behind a few people's workstations and watch how our news feed or our HR portal or our community requests pop up in their real work. That's the secret of working smarter, not harder, together. We're all about community. You guys all have your personal secrets that work for you. But when we bring the community in, the secret to working smarter, not harder, together is always, always, always the most intense level of empathy you can get. To literally go watch people be a forklift driver or a barrister at a coffee shop or whatever, a checkout person if you work for Target, a broker if you work for a financial service. Go watch their work screen and their workstation and watch what happens to your news feed or your community requests within the context of their work. It will blow you away as to what it does for you to give you an understanding of them. So what I'd like to do, as Stephanie said, I'd like to replicate as much of that as I can right now. This is not about me presenting, this is your work session. So all of you have handouts in front of you. Can I ask you to go to the first page in those handouts? And Nancy and others, those of you who are at a single-person table, you might want to join somebody else. Can we have a few minutes of breakouts? What I'd like to ask you to do is at your tables. I know fears and concerns, you guys talked all about this at this conference, but we can also make excuses. We can also impose our perspective. I'd like you to put yourself, while I'm speaking, think about one of your most important stakeholders, a mid-manager, a line person, somebody on the factory floor. While I'm speaking, pick out in your head somebody who is your representative stakeholder. And for the next few minutes, I'd like to ask all of you to put yourself in his or her shoes. We're not social experts anymore. We're not community experts. Your job for the next few minutes is to be a proxy for everybody that you have in your head. And can you talk to each other, to your table mates, for just a few minutes, and then I'll bring you back and we'll have a group debrief about what are that person's needs from their perspective. How do they look at social, at community, at all our news feeds? The main criteria is the work they have to get done their day. And can you think about the top 3 or so that are most important to them? So if you're doing this exercise well, you're being a proxy for them. You're channeling them. Put yourself in their perspective. So take a few minutes at your tables and just talk about your most important stakeholder groups and put yourselves in their shoes. Take a few minutes. Okay, can I bring everybody back? And we've got mics on either side of the room. Can you share, anybody who wants to jump up first, share any of the big ahas or eureka moments you've had about the people who are not here. What are they thinking about, or what are their needs? Over here?
Yep. I don't have enough time to collaborate, post, answer, upload docs, whatever that is. I need to sell, I need to process orders. That's what they're focused on. Another one would be, I don't know, this social thing, the ad target, hashtagging, things like that. So those are 2 items that we talked about.
Cool. I didn't announce it, but notice what's happening. Who else wants to report out? Over here.
Well, we're talking about how there needs to be faith and trust in the system. You need to know that if you're going to ask the question, you're going to get the answer, and that you're not going to be stuck on waiting or on performance or on lack of knowledge out there.
And do they feel, put yourselves in their shoes, do they feel they can trust the system?
Right now they can't, but we're hoping that we can, both with system.
Yeah, okay, but what's the answer?
No.
The answer's no. They can't trust the system. The yeah buts don't matter, do they? If I gotta bust my hump, the yeah buts don't matter. Those are all your things. Now I'm role playing. I hope you understand that. But that's what we need to face up to. Who else wants to share?
So in my case, it's mostly, I work 10 hours a day. I'm always traveling. I'm always visiting a customer. I don't have time to sit down and just dabble on any type of social media. Plus, I don't know exactly what that is. So I think that's a waste of time. I see my granddaughters doing it, oh, blah. I gotta make them see, hey, you could be very successful. You could get more customer engagements. This is easy. Let me show you how easy it is. You don't even have to go to your computer. You can do it from your phone. 3 steps, I'll show you, 5 minutes.
Three steps, that's good. What does this have to do with my job? How does this help me do my job better?
It's gonna make you get more customers to know who you are, and it's gonna make your peers recognize you. Because they're gonna say, hey, I don't
care about my peers. What about my customers?
Money.
Okay, there we go. See what everybody's thinking about? We need to drill past the things that we would put in the conversation. Now, thank you for both of you guys allowing me some tough love latitude. But you see where I'm going? I'm pushing hard to get to their perspective. What else? What other perspectives we got? Yeah.
So I think it's tough to get out until you really connect with somebody and dig a little bit deeper into the real reason why they don't participate on these platforms. But if you do, what I've heard a lot is they don't know the technology, and they're a bit embarrassed, and they're afraid they're going to do it wrong, and they're afraid how they're going to look, right? So oftentimes you have to be comfortable asking a question and basically saying, I don't know this, right? This is my job, and yet I don't know something I need to get my job done, but I don't care, and that's okay. I'm going to post it anyways, and the fact that I'm looking for support is okay, but some people it isn't. Some people, they're concerned about how they're going to be perceived by the rest of the organization, by the way they participate on these platforms, and the fact that they don't know what they're supposed to know, right? That they're seeking answers, but
especially that's awesome. Especially, thank you. In a large environment, how we are perceived is a crucial situation. So you're going to make it easier for me, maybe nice, but I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about if I do this, I am being vulnerable to my peers. Will I be perceived as not knowing what I'm doing? So that's what they're thinking about from their perspective. Others? Yes? Yes, there's one right behind you.
At our table, it really came down to billable codes for your timesheet. Consulting company, people need to bill their time out to client work. And it's not that they don't want to learn the social tools, it's like this time reporting issue. You don't have the non-billable hours to spend on this type of thing.
Great point. And there's no matter how we spin it, that's a reality. That's their reality. Thank you very much. It was wonderful. Others? Yes, over here.
So I'd say for our factory workers, they view it as a complete waste of time. They're there for their shift, and they're there to do a specific task, and they just basically say, we don't have time to go fire up. I have a half an hour lunch. I go check my email real quick to find out what's important that my boss sent me, and I have no time to do anything else.
We can get along with this much easier with knowledge service workers. The factory worker, I got to punch in, I got to punch out, and that's it. Great point. I've also, speaking of walking in their shoes, I once did a job for a plant. I won't name the company, but it's in South Carolina. I found out one of their biggest HR issues was some of the people had brought mattresses up to the flat roof, and they were having sex on their lunch hour. That was one of the, so you got some issues you got to deal with besides community. What else did you guys come up with? Yes?
Just too many communication channels coming at you. You've got your email already. You have people stopping by. I can't take one more communication channel to look into.
That's great. Thank you. And we need to put that in context. That's not just us. That's the entire world. Everything. You know, I know this now as an author. Everybody out there, there's 7 billion potential authors. Everybody out there is putting stuff out in the context of the world. Yes, we got another one over here.
So I think for us, it's also around leadership. If they're not engaged, they're not there, why should I go there?
Why should I bother?
It's like no one's listening, talking to myself. It's not mandated, and that's how they think of it.
Great, thank you. Here you go. Thank you. One more before I bring us all back. You got another? If I ask you guys to, you were all listening to each other. Put that all together in a punchline for me, in a headline. What do you think, if we put ourselves in the audience's perspective, what do you think all that adds up to? Why bother? What else? I won't give you a book because I know you have this one. What's in it for me is a crucial one. It's a waste of time. It's not my job. That's the one I want to focus on. Is all of these people, we have to assume, here you go, thank you. Thank all of you for great responses. Thank you for putting yourselves in the other person's shoes. And I'll leave these here. Nancy will tell you this is her Bible. This is the one book that's still on years after coming out. This will be some of the stuff I'll cover. I'll leave these two up here. Anybody wants to take it can grab it. I think what we need to understand is our job is community. Their job, they're on LinkedIn, most of them if they're professionals. They understand the need for community, but community is this much of their job. We need to put all of this in context. So my goal to help you work smarter, not harder, is two things. This is the main slide I want you to focus on and think about and take notes on. Everything else after this is just details, some more how-tos. But this is it. This is the punchline for the entire session. Please do not go home without having this page filled out. And this page, it's in your handouts. You can write on it. This page is what are the 3 to 5 things from their perspective. From their perspective. You cannot be fully empathetic to them. I heard lots of great talk in all the sessions, but everybody was still treating them as their job is obviously what we need to accomplish. No, their job has nothing to do with you. You are a great enabler, and you need to help them see that, but their job has nothing to do with you. So you cannot work smarter, or let me say that in the positive. The best way for you to work smarter is if you leave here with the top 3 to 5 things written down that you know your most important stakeholders will be thinking about or feeling, and put everything you do in their context. So that's on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side is you. You're the happy face. You know the Eureka app that you guys have been doing? Before you go home, if you're going to work smarter, you got tons of notes. I know you got stuff on your tablets, on your written out notes. You got way too many notes. Your job before you go home, before you talk to anybody at home, is crystallize those things down to the 3. The best way I can give it to you as a hint is your Eureka moments. Your 3 to 5 most important ahas that you got out of the conference. The details, any of the details in my presentation or any of the others really don't matter. It's what made you pee in your pants with excitement while you were here? What made you jump for joy? What made you pissed off? What made you happy? What made you feel connected to whatever it was? What made you, do you see the word I keep repeating? Feel. What did you feel when you were here? I don't want to know the technical stuff. What did you feel? If you can write down the 3 to 5 most important things you felt while you were here. That's what you need. That's the elevator speech you need to bring back. I won't do another exercise, don't have time for it. But those are the two things. If you can fill out that single page, you will leave here working smarter, not harder, because you'll be putting yourself in their shoes, and you'll be able to crystallize your work down to a few simple things. So that's it. The rest of these things, I'm going to try and breeze through some handouts, some of the handout details, so you have some more how-tos. But I also recognize I am the only thing between you and Disney World, so I'll try and be brief. I want to give you a better picture of their day. I'm going to go through these numbers really quick, but this is what everybody who's home, this is their day. I'm going to go through all the numbers quickly except one, the last one. It's about 7, 8 o'clock as you're looking at it. I'll start with number 140. We all know what that is. What is that? What is 140? Or less. It's Twitter. But it's more than Twitter. It's the fact that everybody out there, including you, has the attention span of a gnat. The whole world is ADD. Nobody reads anymore. All this long type you guys got up here, that's BS. Nobody frickin' reads anymore. Everybody is ADD. Everybody has the attention span of this. I knew this was coming, and I study this all the time, but when it really hit me was when there's actual legitimate research out there on how many people are texting while having sex. That, I mean, it's clearly, if you cannot pay attention to your lover for 5 to 10 minutes, without texting about it, the game over. Game over, man. Everybody out there is ADD, and that's the context we have to operate in. The other research comes from my firm, the Jensen Group. 3 of the top 5 sources of work complexity comes from too much information or clutter and hard to understand information. Everybody out there is losing 2 to 4 hours per day trying to pay attention to all the crap that you're sending them and everybody else is sending them. 2 to 4 hours per day. That's 30 to 90 days per year that you could be spending at Disney World instead of doing other stuff at your desk. 500. The amount of information inside your companies is doubling about every 500 days. That's less than 18 months. That means if somebody's getting 100 emails per day, less than 18 months from now, they're going to be getting 200. Less than 18 months after that, they're going to be getting 400. Less than 18 months after that, they'll be getting 800, 1,600. The amount of information inside your organization is doubling while you sit here, regardless of what you do. The research that I've done, the 325 to 5, that's the average person. If you printed out all your screens, all your notes, all the, your pages, the average person gets about 325 pages of information every day. The average person needs only 5 pages to do their work. We're shoveling. It's like my grandfather used to say, we're trying to fit 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And that's what everybody's day is like. He said manure. But that's what everybody's day is like. And what I want you to feel more empathy on is you are part of that. As much as you're solving their problems, you're creating their problems. You're part of the information doubling every 500 days. You're part of the 325 pages instead of the 5. We need to have more empathy, but the most important number I want to share with you is that last one, the number 1,440. Anybody have any idea what it is? You experienced it yesterday, you experienced it today, you'll experience it tomorrow. What does the number 1,440 represent? All of you are experiencing it right now. Sorry? There are 1,440 minutes in every day. You want to know why that's so important? That number never changes. That number never changes. Nobody gets more. Nobody gets 1441 or 42 because you sent them stuff to pay attention. So really, what's going on, if you really have empathy for everybody, you need to understand what your real competition is. Your real competition is the fact that that number never changes, but you keep trying to cram more stuff, more manure in for them to pay attention within that time frame. That's the real conundrum. Why everybody says, what's in it for me? Why they say it's not my job? It's because they want to be good employees, they want to be good people, but hey, I only have 1,440 minutes today, and what am I going to get done? Is it going to be your stuff or somebody else's? So if we're truly going to walk a mile in their shoes, I want you to remember that you are cramming more stuff in their 1,440 minutes. So how do we do our best job to fix that? I'd like to reframe this entire conference. It's not about any of the specifics we talked about. Really, what you are doing, if you're fulfilling your role as a value-added provider to them, is you're helping them make new choices about how they spend their 1,440. And everything you do, if you're doing it well, they will see the value in making new choices. If you don't do it well, they'll blow you off, and they'll be right to. We all need to, none of us can keep up with this explosion anymore. Nobody can, we're all texting when we're supposed to be sleeping, or texting when we're supposed to be watching our kids, or texting while we have sex. We're all keep trying to steal from those 1,440. And we've maxed it out. Nobody's going to win that war. What we need to do is make different choices about what our priorities are. And your job, and everybody who supports them, is to help them make different choices. So let me give you some clues about how to do that. The first thing I want you to understand is the 3 to 5 rule. From the research that I've done, and frankly from several of the presentations I've already heard here, 3 to 5 rule applies all the time, everywhere, to everybody. From the research I've done, you have 3 to 5 seconds to get your point across electronically. You have 3 to 5 minutes to get your point across in person. So everything you do, I heard some of the presenters talk about 2 to 5 minute videos. Great. But everything we do, we have to recognize that if you're going to send them something electronically, they will not read it. It's not their job to read it. You have to put either a graphic or a headline or something in there that screams within 3 to 5 seconds, pay attention to me, there's value in here for you. 3 to 5 seconds. So anything you send me, that's it. That's the time you have for my attention. Because everybody is asking for their 1440. So that's 3 to 5, and 3 to 5 minutes. By the way, I'm not on the stage. I would have showed you my 3x5 cards, but I have this entire presentation worked out in 5-minute segments. Anytime you're in front of somebody for an hour, you don't have them for an hour. You have 12 sections, 12 sessions within an hour. And your job is to figure out, how do I change the pace? How do I change the... You'll also notice that, I'm calm, Mr. Bill. I'm in your face, Mr. Bill. I'm varying the pace. I'm varying, your attention. This is all planned. Everything is a 5-minute segment. How I'm using your time. So it's all orchestrated to recapture your attention every 5 minutes. Here's the secret, the universal secret to doing that with everybody. I've tested this all around the world, in all different languages, in all different cultures. This works because it's not based on technology logic, management logic, any other logic except human nature. As human beings, the simplest way I can describe us as human beings, we're made up of 3 basic components: intellect, emotion, action. This comes from a change management model called head, heart, hands. Anything that you want to get across to them, the best, the most ideal, within 3 to 5 seconds or 3 to 5 minutes, hits all 3 of these. And basically, if you want to capture their attention and be valuable to them most of the time, you need to be able to say, what's the one thing I want you to know or understand or think about? My one thing is walk a mile in their shoes. Everything else is details. The feel is how I'm modulating my calm voice, my in-your-face voice, and my humor voice, whatever it is. So I'm creating a feel moment. The action is I'm pleading with you before you go home to fill out that one page that has the 2 sides. Please do not communicate to anybody. Now, because I'm doing an hour and a half presentation, I put it in the middle. But if you're talking to somebody and you have 3 to 5 minutes, the first thing you want to know is, here's how I understand your perspective, and here's mine. Let's work together. So please, if you're going to work smarter, not harder, make sure you have that one page filled out. Out of all the pages you've got, either take a slide of it in your camera, in your phone, or bring these handouts with you. But no feel do is the secret to all of this. And your job in 3 to 5 minutes face-to-face and 3 to 5 seconds online is to connect with them as far as what's the one thing you want them to understand, what do you want them to feel, and what do you want them to do. And this is universal. I've done this in China, I've done this in India, I've done this in Germany, I've done this everywhere around the world. It still applies because it's based on human nature. So let me be more specific. Stephanie asked me to get as specific as I could to take this entire conference. I wrote up a template for you. You guys fill in something that's real for you. I made up a generic. But here's one for 2 different stakeholder audiences. One is when you have to go back and communicate up, and the other is to communicate to the workforce. Communicating to the workforce, look at everything that's in red. That's either the know or the feel or the do. What's in black is the explanation. So from a senior perspective, from a C-suite perspective, your 3 to 5 minutes is not, I went to this great conference, oh, you wouldn't have believed this awesome MC, he was so funny, and this and this, and this and that, and he's still planning over there his Walt Disney World. I know he's not paying attention, even though he should be. He's not paying attention, he's planning Walt Disney World. That's okay. I'm teasing you. Don't get caught up in the details. From the C-suite's perspective, the one thing they want to know is either how is it going to make me money or save me money. For most CEOs, now yours may be different, but that's the takeaway that you need to present to them. What's the feel? We can help you with employee engagement or something around that. What's the do? Make sure you don't go to that C-suite person without some action. We've got a town hall meeting we want to have in the month of June. No, feel, do. From a workforce perspective, if you do this, it may take you a few hours longer this week and next week and for the next 2 months, but here's my guarantee, within 3 months, I can save you 3 hours per week. Would that be helpful to you? Now you're looking at it from their perspective. You'll be included, you'll get to participate, and I'll make it easier for you. And the first thing I want you to do is fill out a survey. So this is an example of looking at this entire conference from the perspective of the people who aren't here. And I'll be around for a while after we're done. If any of you want, follow up, how would I do it with this kind of C-suite person or, with this kind of workforce, let me know. I'm here. I also want you to be ballsy. One of the books that I just handed out was on disruption. I interviewed 100 disruptive heroes. Everybody from the founders of Flickr and StumbleUpon and Uber to the producer, James Cameron's producer on Titanic and Avatar, to the person who led the Arab Spring movement, to the world's greatest female poker player. Interviewed a ton of people on creating disruptions. And if there's one thing I would ask you to do is stop being so safe. All of you guys are still too scared. The same thing we were talking about here, how I'll be perceived, it just doesn't apply to everybody else, it applies to us. Well, disruption is happening so much, we need to be gutsier. We need to be bolder. So a few tips I would give you around that is the days of whatever that word says. They're over. We need to put big ideas out there. Now, how we can do it, one of the reasons I spent so much time on this one sheet, by the way, if you can't communicate anything on one page, you're not ready to communicate it. So the simple, bold idea, when you go to your C-suite, you need to be able to give them a one-pager. That's what number one is. Don't walk into the C-suite without a one-pager. And big type. One of my favorite clients, Bank of America, used to be able to follow this, and they got it to 8-point, 7-point. They kept cheating the size of the type. Big type, like a slide. Your job is to really create the conversation space. What if we did this? What would happen? But the most important thing I want to share with you, that everybody that was in safe environments, as well as bold entrepreneurs, everybody said piloting mitigates the risks. Try something out with 10 people and just see what happens. So take a bold idea and try it for a month with 10 people. The other thing I want to share with you that you know from Silicon Valley is fail forward. That we iterate, iterate, iterate. Don't get it perfect, and many of you spoke about this. The one thing I'd like to add to what many of the other speakers had is I would ask you for yourself to think of all your work as a project portfolio. And let's say you had, to make my math simple, let's say you had 10 projects per year. Pick one of them where you personally are more willing to get dinged, where you're less concerned about looking good, where you're willing to put your ass on the line for something. Not all 10, just like a financial portfolio. I'm not asking you to risk your career. I'm not asking you to go all out and get fired. But think of all the projects you do and pick one that's a fail forward, where whether or not you're given permission to do this, you take a few more risks and see what you do. So think of all of your projects and pick at least one per year, one per quarter if you can be so bold, and make it a fail forward project where you're more willing to put everything out there. That's really what I've got. Just a couple more slides to close with, but that's really all I had to share with you. Let me stop and ask, whether you text it or not, what is your Eureka moment right here, right now? Thank you, guys. I didn't give you a heads up. You guys are on it. What is your Eureka moment from this session?
The fail forward part and the take chances part. So people tend to be very careful with the type of person they present to when they're in a work environment. And sometimes it ends up happening that after 10 years you have no idea who you've been working with. I'm not like that. I'm me now, tomorrow, yesterday, and always, because I know what I can do, but I also know how I like to have fun. And I'm not gonna be someone else in a work environment, because that's not gonna allow the people that work with me to know me. And if you spend 9 hours, 8 hours a day with someone, I mean, you kind of have to put yourself out there. It is a risk. You are not playing it safe. You might be rejected. People might not like you. They might judge you for certain things that they don't feel are okay. but it's the risk you're taking. It's the type of life you want to live. Do you want to live happy, or do you want to live always second guessing yourself? And the fact that you say just try it, even if you fail forward. I mean, fall down, get up, fall down, get up, fall down, get up. Nobody started being perfect. I mean, not even God did it. So why would I assume that I would have to be perfect? I can fall down, I can get up, I can make mistakes, break things, but isn't that what we all are, imperfect? So.
Awesome, wonderfully said, thank you. Yes?
I really like the everyone has ADD. And I think about that all the time. Every time I give a presentation and when you're talking to people, it's always that, you have that short window to grab them, and even of that population, you're not grabbing all of them. No matter what you do, you could jump up and down and scream like you did when you first started. I mean, that grabs everybody, or it grabs a lot of people, but it's this inability to always connect, because people are doing those 15 other things in their own mind, thinking about something else that they need to do tomorrow. And and whenever you write something, it's that same thing, because you get that email that's 4 paragraphs long, and you're like, ooh, okay, bullet, no. And then you're moving on. I mean, that's reality right now, and I think it's a great way to start approaching how you communicate.
Thank you.
And I did that just for the book.
Well, you got it. It earned you. What else? We got another one over there. You got a book, so we're not going to give you one.
Just to extend off that topic, just make it easier for them to make new choices. That's it.
Perfect. What else? We got another one.
My Eureka moment was when you told us we were part of the problem. So really thinking about how we can be less part of the problem and more part of the solution, it's going to be somewhat of a challenge.
Thank you. That was wonderful. One of my slides that I usually include is a 1940s cartoon character by the name of Pogo, and his most famous quote was, "We have met the enemy and he is us." We are all unbelievably, I love you, man. I love all of you. You're amazing. But we're all, myself included, anytime we advocate all this, we're all part of the problem. We have met the enemy and he is in this room. Are we willing to realize that when we go home?
Nancy. Well, I just want to say that the new appreciation I have is just for how hard this is, how everybody's job here is so hard, but we're changing the world of work, and it's supposed to be that way. So just my thought about it is, getting it down to the 3 to 5 things, making sure that we're brave and fearless is what's going to make it really happen for all of us and all of the people that work with us. So that's my Eureka moment.
Thank you, Nancy. Any others? Yes.
I feel that when our efforts started maybe 5 years ago, that I was bold and assertive and pushing the envelope on ideas, and then there's a certain amount of normalcy that occurs, and your talk reinvigorated me that, it's time for that next big, bold something, because we've gotten everyone this far. Now it's time to take that on again, the next level up again, if you will.
Thank you.
Whatever the next
And
thing
I've run
is.
out of books. Give me your card. I'll get you one. I really do love everybody here. You guys are amazing, but I hope I phrased it well enough, but being bold, all of you guys are amazing in what you do. It's time for all of us to up our game. I'm talking about respect with the 1440. All of you guys are respectful human beings. I don't doubt that. But can we be more respectful? Can we understand that everything we do, how we get our work done, is we use a portion of someone else's life? How about we go home realizing that, what do we do with that? If we're going to respect other people, and the only way our work gets done is if we use a portion of somebody else's life, what do we owe those people? I'm done with the Q&A. What do we owe those people when we go back home? And to be more gutsy, more outrageous, all of you guys are doing amazing things, but the world is, I can now go to New York and call a taxi on my phone. I can now, have medical stuff tracked in an ambulance. The whole world is changing in an amazing rate. Are we changing fast enough? Can we up our game? Can we up our audacity game? I wanted to close with a couple little bits, a couple more giveaways and a couple more bits of advice. Parting advice I would give you around personal development. I would ask all of you to seek out, we all know we need mentors. I would ask all of you to seek out 2 mentors. One twice your age. For some of us, that might be hard. But one half your age. And I do not mean go to your nephew who's great at tech stuff, who understands tech stuff better than even you do. I don't mean that. I mean go to your niece or nephew or son or daughter or kid down the block who's coming up with this amazing entrepreneurial idea. Like the science fair winner girl from high school that was shown on Jimmy Fallon, who invented a flashlight that is powered by the warmth of your hand. This generation right now is doing amazing things that we cannot even comprehend. I would ask you to go find a mentor to coach you on being gutsier, who's half your age. So the closing bit of advice on personal device is 2 mentors, twice your age, half your age. This is the obligatory Jensen Simpler Work page, blah, blah, blah. I won't go through all of it. Those are the books, some of the books I've written. It would be nice if you went and got them. But the most important thing, only for the cool people in the room, somewhere on this page is a code that if you take that code and input it at simplerwork.com store, you can get everything for free. That's why it ends in 00. So only for the cool people who are in this room who pay attention. There's a code on the page. You can get anything on that site. One thing I'd recommend, I think it's 25 bucks, but you'll get it for free, is how to write an entire strategic plan, an entire year worth of strategy on one page. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, more tools for free that most of the site is for free, but there's a few things on there. Before I tell you what I told you, it is now, according to my watch, 13 minutes to 11. I was slated for 11:15 end, and I started 10 minutes late. What did I just do that I'm going to want you guys to do when you go home?
Give them back time.
The most precious gift you can give anybody these days is give them back time. So if you schedule an hour-long meeting, make sure that you've only got it slated. In your mind, you're only going to use half hour. Whatever you do, give people back time. They only have 1,440 minutes. The only request I would make of you for the time that I give back, and then the staff is going to start. By the way, Luke, get the staff ready. We're going to be ready sooner. Your session.
Yes. We can be ready sooner, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I'll be ready in a couple minutes.
Okay.
The only request I would ask of you, do not use that extra time to get on your phone unless you're telling somebody you love them. Spend the time with somebody here, give them a hug. Use that extra time for what really matters in life. Tell somebody you love them, tell somebody you like them. Don't just go back to work with that extra time. That's my request. So, I'm sorry. So, the big takeaway from this session, please, 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 fill out this one-pager and you will work smarter. When you go back, recognize that your job is to help everybody else make their choices more easily. If you can help them, not around community, not around your needs, around their needs. And if they say, well, community doesn't help me in my job, accept it and move on. Look at everything from walking a mile in their shoes And your job is to coach them to make the best choices they can, to be the best person they can be. It's not about all the stuff we do that are our deliverables. It's all about them. And if we can leave here organizing everything that happened in the last few days around them, you'll kick ass on working smarter, not harder. I want to thank you for your time.
So we're going to finish out now with a panel of our own leadership